see General Hammond, sir. He says it's important. It's to do with the Stargate.
Colonel Meade, your team will be designated SG1. Their duties will be to perform reconnaissance, determine threats, and if possible, to make peaceful contact with the peoples of these worlds. They will be our ambassadors, meeting other races, establishing ties with other worlds.
You know the enemy. You know the risks.
SGC may be the single most important human endeavor for the future of mankind.
Actually, the Goa'uld want to see you dead as much as anyone. Figuring out the Stargate.
Doesn't make me feel any better.
SG1 is a valuable asset, but there's still just one team. Wow.
Our core mission is to go through that gate and find technologies we can use to defend against Goa'uld incursion. And when the Goa'uld wipe us out because we have nothing with which to defend ourselves, I'm sure we'll all feel great about ourselves and our high morals.
You just killed 2 of my men and screwed your whole planet.
And no matter what anyone says, the people at the SGC have done the best job anyone could under the circumstances.
All batteries, open fire.
Strike me now.
Mach 4-2.
SG1 has a surprisingly good habit of beating the others.
I can save these people!
Hi, guys.
Help me!
Don't you dare leave us now. We won.
Get out of there!
What happens if I look at my life and I don't honestly believe I deserve it?
I have nowhere to go.
It's true, we've made enemies. But we've also made friends.
The answer is in there. Evacuate the gate room. Get out of there. Our shields are of no use.
We're abandoning ship.
Woohoo!
I'm wrong.
I've never blown up a star before.
Well, they say the first one's always the hardest.
What's up, everybody? Bill Tendo here, and welcome back to another Forgotten Sci-Fi. Now, before we get started, if you guys want to help the channel out and contribute, we have a Patreon that's listed down below. If you don't want to contribute, that's fine. Just enjoy the free content. But if you want to help out, fantastic. That'd be great. Anyway, today we're talking about Stargate SG1. SG1 was a continuation of the original Stargate movie, but not a true continuation, being that the actors changed, the writers changed, and the directors changed. The original Stargate movie starred Kurt Russell and James Spader as the characters that would be Jack O'Neill and Daniel Jackson. Where the movie drops off at the very end with Daniel staying on the alien planet of Abydos and Jack O'Neill headed back to Earth and leaving him there. To kick off the series, Showtime made a made-for-TV movie called Children of the Gods, and yes, it does have full frontal nudity in it, which seems crazy nowadays. But it was starring Richard Dean Anderson. Come on, MacGyver. His name was so big at the time because he was just coming off of MacGyver that he actually has top billing over the name of the show. If you look on the DVDs, the posters, everything, Richard Dean Anderson is always above and slightly larger than where it says Stargate SG1. The show also stars Amanda Tapping, who played Samantha Carter, and she has been known, she went on to have her own show called Sanctuary, and she's actually directed a lot of stuff since then. Feel free to check it out. Shows like The 100, even episodes of Supernatural. And then we have Christopher Judge, who played Tilk, the Jaffa. Christopher Judge is most known by kids today as the voice of Kratos in God of War. He is the famous voice that says, boy. Although in Stargate, he pretty much just says, indeed, all the time. And that's it. And it's always an off-screen joke that he always talks and never shuts up. Because on screen, he never really says anything but the word indeed. And then we have Daniel Shanks, who took over the role of James Spader and actually got the role for the TV show because he did such a great James Spader impersonation. And in the first 2 seasons or so, he carries on that impersonation, but after that, he kind of drops it little bit by little bit until Daniel Jackson is his own character. Now, we also have in the 5th season, Daniel Shanks left for a season. We had Corin Nemec take his place. If you don't recognize that name, that's from Parker Lewis Can't Lose. Great show from my teen years. And in the later seasons, we have both Claudia Black and Ben Browder from Farscape, another great sci-fi show that no one ever talks about anymore. We're going to have to do a Farscape one of these eventually. Claudia Black, in the meantime, has been doing voiceovers for video games. Everything from Halo to, I looked it up earlier, there was like 30 credits or more in the last probably 7 years that she's done. So, good for her. Ben Browder, he's been acting in a lot of television shows. So, everyone's career has seemed to do well. Richard Dean Anderson, of course, has pretty much retired. He doesn't do much at all anymore. He just wanted to spend time with his family, and we understand that. So, let's get into the main issues here with Stargate SG1. It was originally shown on Showtime in 1997. Now, this show went on for 10 seasons, although at some point after the 5th season, it moved to the Sci-Fi channel. And there was not much of a tonal change, but there was a little bit of a change. The entire show was filmed in Vancouver, British Columbia, in Canada. But it is an American show, so it's a Canadian-American show. It also was credited for a very long time as the longest-running North American science fiction series, because if you look back at Star Trek and stuff like that, no show has gone 10 seasons. Only Stargate SG1. Now, some people say Supernatural, but Supernatural is not really a sci-fi show. As a matter of fact, they openly eschew sci-fi. They did a couple episodes with aliens that turned out not to be aliens, but demons and older gods. So I don't really think of Supernatural as a sci-fi show. It's definitely a supernatural fantasy show. So eventually they moved on to the Sci-Fi Network. And things were real iffy for a long time. At the end of each year, they were never 100% certain if they were coming back with another season. Now, the main enemy of the first 8 seasons of the show, if you include the Anubis story arc, which you should, were the Goa'uld. The Goa'uld are a parasitic alien race. They steal technology, claim it as their own, and they do the same thing with humans and other creatures. They take them as hosts. They're snake-like beings that burrow in through the back of your neck or through your mouth and take control of your body. you are just trapped inside forever. And Goa'uld have technology to live almost forever. This idea was actually ripped off by Stephanie Myers, who I believe wrote Twilight, and she wrote a book called The Host, which was just a ridiculous ripoff of the Goa'uld situation brought to Earth. So the first 8 seasons were about the Goa'uld actually have an entire star empire. The leaders of this call themselves the System Lords. And it's all about them ruling the galaxy and enslaving the galaxy for certain natural resources that they need for their technology. They live in opulence and they have slaves. They have Jaffa, which are their soldiers, which carry baby gold in pouches inside their stomachs. And for this, they are granted extraordinary health and extraordinary longevity. A human on the show lives roughly 80 years or so, and a Jaffa will live around 250. A 100-year-old is still considered a child on Stargate SG1. So, the Goa'uld, there are many, many stories of... It does a great job. Let me back up just a second, because they take the place not only as the rulers of the galaxy, but they position themselves as gods. So their followers don't think they're following people. They don't think they're following aliens. They think they are doing the bidding of their gods. And the way the stories are written, and I really enjoy this, and I know it's a little bit of a Shaggy Dog story, but all of Earth's ancient gods are somehow actually the Goa'uld, because at one time they were here, and then we revolted and buried the gate, and they couldn't get back. Anubis, Apophis, Ra, all of the Egyptian gods were definitely Goa'uld. And then there were a lot of Celtic gods brought up later on that were also Goa'uld. Now, on the other side of that, the ancient humans, the creators of the Stargates themselves, who were known as the Lanteans, the Ancients, the Ancestors, they had an alliance with the Asgard, who are the same Asgard from Norse mythology, except they are what we refer to as the Greys. Now, they live in another galaxy called the Ida Galaxy, and I'm not exactly sure where that is from our galaxy. It's very far away, and they signed treaties to keep the Goa'uld off of certain planets. Earth was one of them. But they don't really have the military strength in our galaxy to defend this treaty, so that's an ongoing issue. Because they have a war going in their own home galaxy with the replicators, which eventually come to our galaxy, which are basically just robots, and their only purpose is to replicate. So if they get aboard a starship, they're going to consume that starship and make more replicators. That's it. They do it with entire planets. They have no purpose other than to make more of themselves. That becomes a huge thing here and there in the mythos of the stories. The Goa'uld arc was fantastic, and I loved it. I really did. The way you learned about all of these gods, that their mythology comes from Earth, and how we think of them, and what they really were according to the show. The lore of the show is pretty deep. I do have to give a shout out to the best Goa'uld of them all, Baal, played by Cliff Simon, who is now deceased. He was a South African actor who played in a lot of soap operas there, and then got the role as Baal. And he, absolute favorite villain. As a matter of fact, there were 2 movies after the television show, and one of them was based just around him because he's that good. Now, that's the Goa'uld arc, without giving away too much. Eventually, we win, but it takes 8 seasons to do it. We thought the show was going to end with the 5th season, and so Anubis attacks Earth, and that's when the show moved from Showtime to the Sci-Fi network. So, they picked it up, and it just kept going on. So then we thought the show was over at the 8th season. At the end of the 8th season, the whole Gold story wraps up. There's a couple plot threads, but for the most part, the main premise of the show has wrapped up. And then they get a call from Sci-Fi. They want another season. So they go back. But they have to start at the drawing board. By this point, Richard Dean Anderson just doesn't want to be on the show anymore. He wants to retire. They make jokes that he really phoned it in for season 9 because he only appeared on the telephone as a voice. And that's when Claudia Black and Ben Browder joined the show. Ben Browder taking Richard Dean Anderson's place. And Claudia Black actually takes Amanda Tapping's place because she was pregnant at the time. So she was on the show, but just not as much. But that's when we get introduced to the Ori. The Ori are gods by most measurable circumstances. They are the same as the ancestors, the Lanteans. They all started off as one species in a faraway galaxy, and they grew a divide between religious and scientific. And the scientific ended up being persecuted and left their home galaxy and came here and seeded life. Now, we are the second evolution of their form, so they look exactly like us, but they're not exactly like us. Sorry, this is a long one. And so, the Ori, for years and years, millions of years, have tried to find out where their counterparts went. The Ori are ascended beings. Our ancients eventually ascended. So ascension was introduced way back in around season 4, I believe. And basically what it is when you evolve to a certain point, you become a higher life form, no longer in need of a physical body. You exist on a different level of the time-space continuum. And basically you see humanity as ants, bugs, not to be interfered with. It is too small to worry about. So, at some point, the Lanteans and the Ori ascended. Now, what the Lanteans don't know, because their thing was always free will, we're going to start these people on the path, but we're going to leave them alone and let them do whatever they want to do and become their own beings. The Ori found out the more humans they have worshiping them, the more powerful they become. So their whole galaxy is subject to them, and they do interfere. They interfere heavily. They are living gods. In other words, they possess human forms because they are pure energy beings, and from time to time they possess a human's body, but their followers have a very real determination of their gods because their gods are living. They speak to them. And so seasons 9 and 10 are the Ori becoming aware of our galaxy and how many humans live in it and how much more powerful they would become if they came here and we all worship them. So basically it's a religious crusade against us. The Ori come in and they're trying to... Oh, hey, Miss Lucy. Hello. So the Ori, this is Lucille Bluth. So the Ori come in and they try to invade, and this goes on for 2 seasons and a movie. The movie is called The Ark of Truth. It's a fantastic movie after season 10, which season 10 does a pretty decent job of wrapping up. Also, seasons 9 and 10 with the Ori introduced the amazing, one of my favorite actresses of all time, Morena Baccarin, who was on Firefly as the companion. She was Deadpool's girlfriend. Oh man, fantastic actress. Love her to death. I even mention her name to my wife, and my wife makes fun of me. I'm a big fan of her. She's been in a number of science fiction television shows and movies, and I always enjoy her performances. She's very talented. So she comes in, and basically she's the figurehead of the Ori to lead their armies. They call her the Oricide. And she is Claudia Black's daughter. Basically the Immaculate Conception situation with the Ori. They more refer to it as sneaking one over the border because she's half ascended, half human. So she has a lot of the abilities of an ascended being, but at the same time, she is a human and she is not ascended at all. So technically she'd be shot, but she would heal very quickly, I guess. She has a lot of abilities, you know. Interesting side note, on season 9, when she is born, she grows from an infant into a fully grown woman in about 4 days. And at one point, when she's 11 years old, that role is played by Jodelle Ferland, who is a Canadian actress. She also played Harmony in Stargate Atlantis in an episode. I'm a big fan of Jodelle's as well. And Jodelle she was the creepy little girl in the Silent Hill movie. She's the voice of Little Sister in BioShock 2, the game. She is number 6 on Dark Matter, who had the same writer and creator as SG1. So that's not a surprise. He liked working with her. She's a good actress. So anyway, the 9th and 10th seasons are all about this crusade against humanity to force us all to worship their gods, the Ori, and us fighting back and trying to take them out so that we may have free will. And it wraps up with a movie called The Ark of Truth, and there goes my dog, she heard something. It wraps up with a movie called The Ark of Truth that resolves that storyline. And then you have the movie Continuum, which again is about Baal mainly, and time travel and all of that. But if you have never checked out Stargate SG1, I highly advise you do so. One of my favorite all-time science fiction shows, and we are going to go over this is SG1, we're going to do Atlantis, and we're going to do Universe. So, thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. Every little thing helps us out. So, y'all have a great day, and thank you.